Hello and welcome to the Lavahot Podcast. I'm your host, Joseph Connell. Today, we are going to be talking about taking control of your health, and the guest that I have lined up for today, I think would definitely be the best person for the job. Let me give you a quick intro to our guest today. Justin Roethlingshoefer, just want to make sure that I hit that one right, is a performance enhancing expert who uses holistic integrated approach to health and performance. His post-grad PH work in sleep recovery has revolutionized the way that players were treated in the NHL. He has a multi-seven-figure coaching company, Own It Coaching, where they have the coaching aspect, but then the app, the Own It app. He also has clients ranging from NHL stars to Fortune 500. They are on a mission to help and touch over 50,000 lives. Their main goal and mission is to help individuals take control of their health. Justin, welcome to the show.
Joseph, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to hopefully give your guests and listeners some nuggets they can take away and truly take control and own their health again.
Absolutely. So, we have this episode right at the right time because, we're just past the first of the year. And I think that's the time when most people are most sensitive or most conscious to the idea of maybe implementing some new regimens, new routines, new workout goals, things like that. For me, I'm kind of at that spot where with work and all sorts of other things, transitioning, growing the business, I've kind of become relaxed on the going to the gym and my personal health. So I'm hoping to steal a ton of advice from you today. But where I would like to kick off would be with this Own It philosophy, and then we can kind of transition from there.
Yeah, I think when people look at health, they look at it from a one-dimensional aspect. It's the six-pack abs. It's the really regimented nutritional programming. It's the supplementation. And they think that just diving into one area is going to solve whatever problem it is that they're suffering from. But if we actually take a step back and we take a look, okay, what does true health look like? What is true health? And I give this paradigm often where if you're looking at a spectrum, and for all you listeners out there, you can't obviously see my hands, but across the spectrum, on the left side, you've got death and disease, and on the far right side, you've got true health. And what we have in the middle is where 90% of people fall, which is called fake health. This is disease-free, but symptom-full. It's your anxieties, it's your headaches, it's your fatigues, it's your body aches, your body pains, you're going to bed and you've got a lot of energy and can't let your mind settle down and waking up exhausted in the morning. These are the patterns that 90% of us fall into, and I would even say that number is higher for entrepreneurs, executives, and business owners because they have done exactly what you just said. They haven't focused on their health and they're just okay, they're excellent in one area of their life, but they've let this other health aspect fall away. And so when we come back to this concept of the Own It philosophy, it's a holistic integration of mental, physical, spiritual, and emotional health. These are all integrated together. And if we are missing one of those three pillars, or we're not focused holistically on the human experience, then we fall short. And when we come into what that human experience is we even take it a level deeper, is we believe that everybody is a soul just having a human experience. And so that soul is made up of something deeper. And we have to truly allow us to get across that barrier to make sure that we are holistically living well in all those components. Yes, nutrition has a play in it. Yes, hydration. Yes, sleep. Yes, supplementation. Yes, environment. Yes, all these things have a play. Mm-hmm. But how are we dealing with our emotional stress? How are we dealing with our mental stress? How are we dealing with our spiritual stress? And ultimately, then, how do those components play into mental emotional, and spiritual health. And so we take all of that into consideration. We take all of that into play for each of our clients, and really dive deep into these personalized solutions that work for them based on their lifestyle and their desires. Before I kind of stop on this kind of long tangent, I know, is I want to talk about the difference between a goal and a desire.
Yeah.
Because oftentimes people get confused by this, is when we lean in and say, hey, what are we wanting to accomplish? Why are we coming into Own It? Or why are we looking into our health? And people are like, and I'll give you this example. Let's call this person, let's call him Pete. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So Pete came to me and he said, you know what? I want to lose 30 pounds. That's my goal for 2022 when he started with us a year ago. And I was like, Pete, that's amazing. I love it. Pete's got a 9-figure business. Pete is a family man, a dad of 2, devoted wife,
Yeah.
just amazing family. And I said, okay, Pete, what's available to you on the other side of those 30 pounds that's not available to you today? And he goes, well, what do you mean? I said, what's available to you? What are you going to get? What are you going to have on the other side of those 30 pounds that you lose that's not available to you today? And I saw him well up with tears in his eyes. And he said, I want my son to see his dad as a real life superhero. This is a guy that has all the cars, has all the homes, has all the vacations, has all the toys, has all the things, has the businesses. That's true desire. His true desire is to be the superhero in his son's eye. And that is now what propels all of the habit change, all of the behavior change, all of the lifestyle change holistically, mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally. Like we're going to put into play. And that's what you hold on to, because that will continue to push you, continue to drive you forwards, even when it gets hard. Because 30 pounds is 30 pounds. We all know what it's like. You might have circulated. You might have lost 30 pounds, then gained 40 back. You might have lost 15 and then gained back those same 15. We all know what that's like. Or we've adopted a behavior, but it just became like a laundry list of things rather than something that really we took ownership of. That's where we come into play, is identifying where your desires are coming from and then being able to pair personalized solutions through technology testing, and more of the like in our physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual health.
Yeah. So how does somebody like get started with you guys? Like, what's that process look like initially, like in that onboarding, trying to dive into some of that stuff?
For everybody, it starts with HRV. HRV is the universal metric. And the unique part about HRV is any wearable device that people are wearing right now, whether it's a Whoop, whether it's an Oura, whether it's a Fitbit, Garmin, Polar, Apple, you name it. It all is pulling heart rate variability. And this is what I did all my postgraduate research in. And when you come down to it, the best definition that I've ever come up with for HRV was the language that your body is communicating to you, how it's adapting to stress and strain. And just like I talked about, well, where health is holistic, mental, emotional, physical, spiritual, so is stress. And your body doesn't know the difference between mental, physical, spiritual, or emotional stress. And so HRV is that universal number that helps us identify, are we adapting positively, or are we adapting negatively to these stressors? So I'll give you an example. When you look at HRV, there's trend lines. It either goes up or it goes down. The higher your trend line, the more positive direction your trend line is moving upwards, meaning you're adapting really well to the stressors that you're placing yourself under. You're well balanced in your stress and strain and your recovery. When we're trending downwards, it means we're not balanced well or rhythmed well between what we're asked to stress on mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally, and our rest and recovery. And so when we take a look at this and we kind of identify the habits and behaviors that need to happen, somebody who's sitting at their desk who is taking back to back to back to back to back to back Zoom calls, getting on podcasts, having to think mentally, having to go pick up the kids, having to go and plan all of these different extracurricular activities. They've got all these meetings on their plate and everything's stacking up. Their HRV curve looks the same as somebody who just goes out and runs a marathon. The stress on your body is the same. And so what happens is we start to become more aware to how our mental, physical, spiritual, emotional impact plays on us from a holistic health standpoint. So now what we can start to do is we can start to create personalized routines, behaviors, lifestyles, where if we know that we've got back-to-back-to-back Zoom calls, maybe we start to give ourselves some breathwork breaks, or we give ourselves some meditative breaks, or we give ourselves some proper hydration and food breaks throughout the day. And we start to be intentional with how we're living.
Yeah.
The second so once we start to understand HRV is the key component that quite frankly gives us control back of our bodies and our health. Because we have a daily metric that we can look at. How am I doing? How am I not? It's just like how we run our businesses off of KPIs. We now have a body KPI that we're going to look at every day. Mm-hmm. The next step is we go a layer deeper, and we're going to do DNA, epigenetic, cellular, and gut biome testing. Why? So that we can start to get really personalized in what should your supplementation routines be? What are your power foods? What are highly protective for you? What's going to be a heavy inflammatory food? What are you predisposed to? Do we have to heal your gut health a little bit? Do we need to custom supplement you in a certain way? And that is how we then layer on to remove more stressors that are going on in our bodies that we just aren't aware of. And so what we start to see in an average client of ours over the course of a year is that we will 3x their HRV score, which at the end of the day means that they have a greater capacity to do more, a greater immune function to stay healthier, an increase in sleep quality, and ultimately an increase in stress resiliency, which is what everybody's looking for. And the byproduct of that is weight loss, energy gain, mental clarity, and the holistic health that somebody's looking for.
Wow. Yeah, so I'm going to tell you this episode, I feel like it hit me like right at the right time because I'm in like a lot of transitions of like building out a company. We're getting ready to launch another company that's like attached to it. And like, I'm just going back to yesterday where I was in that scenario. It was meeting after meeting, back-to-back Zoom calls. And at one point I looked at my wife and I was like, I just feel fried. Yeah. Like, I would imagine if I would have been wearing my Apple Watch and tracked it, now that I have like maybe not a full understanding of what to look for, but I'm sure that I'd be able to see that same thing. The stressor would be off the chart, I would imagine, as if though I was just running on the treadmill. But you had mentioned something like breath work, things like that. For those listening, like what are some things like in those scenarios that they can do, before they go and hit your website or download the app and start to really take this thing seriously? Like what are some things that, you would recommend people to start maybe incorporating? And I say that knowing that it sounds like your approach is usually going to be customizable to each individual. Is that correct?
100%. There's our taglines actually own your different, because everybody's situation is different. Their bodies are different. Their lifestyles are different. Their desires are different. Their family situation's different. And so we need to account for that. And I get asked this all the time is like, where should I start? What's the first thing I should do? And I'm always, I'm going to give you an answer because I'm not going to leave everybody hanging. Yeah. But I always preface this is we don't want to make clones out of everybody. We don't want everybody to be on the same routines. We don't need to have everybody cold plunging every single morning. We don't have to have everybody doing breath work every single morning. We don't have to have everybody meditating every single morning, because guess what it becomes? Just becomes another checklist, just becomes another laundry list, another to-do list that only adds to our mental and emotional anxieties that we already have so much of, which is why we want to come back to what do you truly desire? What do you truly want? Mm-hmm. And when we can get that understood, it's very simple. So I'll go ahead with you here, Joseph, and I'll say, what is it that you truly would desire from a day-to-day component? What is it that you truly desire?
Yeah, so I'm probably not going to give you like down to the full layer, but the first thing that comes to my mind is just like more energy overall. Just an energy to be able to tackle every task like with some I don't know, tenacity or just like, like
Amazing.
yeah, I would say that's it. Just to be, vibrant and full of energy.
Awesome. So play the game with me here for a couple minutes because I'm going to get to something I think will be pretty beneficial for your audience. What do your nights look like and what do your mornings look like? Kind of give me
Yeah.
just the 10,
Oh
20
man,
seconds
yeah.
into the game.
So my nights, if I'll start with the night before. So my nights, I usually can't shut my brain down. So I'm usually up until like midnight or one. Um, I do tend to on most days I'll probably get up around like 8 o'clock. So I try to recover on the sleep then, and then I start my day based from there. Head straight to the office, and then I usually have a laundry list of things to do. Wrap up usually around 5, 6 o'clock, somewhere in that ballpark. Get home, get to hang out with the kids, eat dinner, and then we start that cycle over.
Awesome. So
Yeah.
this is really great because what I end up saying is if you can be selfish with
Mm-hmm.
the first 90 minutes of your day, you can steward yourself for the next 22 hours. And so what I always say is we want to not only be able to be selfish with the first 90 minutes of our day,
Mm-hmm.
but owning the day starts with owning the previous night. So tomorrow, Saturday, for me actually starts Friday night.
Right.
Monday actually starts Sunday night. So here's what I would say, going what you were just discussing.
Mm-hmm.
I hear this all the time. My brain doesn't shut off. I continue to keep going. I continue to keep operating. But do we have any boundaries in how we shut down and how we wind down? Sleep
Mm-hmm.
is the most important thing that we can have in our day-to-day lives. There's 4 things our body can't live without. Like can't live without.
Mm-hmm.
Water, food, sleep, and air. Those 4 things our bodies will perish without them.
Right.
But yet we'll very rarely miss 2 or 3 meals in a row. We'll never hold our breath and expect to just go throughout the day and just not breathe. We'll
Right.
never go an entire day without drinking water, or if we're thirsty, just go, nope, I'm just going to push through. But we do that with sleep all the time.
Yeah.
And yet we don't prepare for sleep. And so one of the biggest things that we can do, and I'll go night to morning here, one of the most important things we can do is get a consistent sleep time. Something that at least 90% of the time we're going to bed at the same time. I know with
Mm-hmm.
kids and some of these things, it can be a little bit more variable, but
Mm-hmm.
we can still hold ourselves accountable to being in bed and trying to be asleep by a certain time. So let's say we choose that time as being 10 o'clock. Let's just go for easy numbers.
Mm-hmm.
Um, then I give a simple 3-2-1 rule. And this 3-2-1 rule allows us to now have a preparation period for sleep. So 3 hours before bed, no more major meals. So by 7 o'clock at night, we're done with major meals. If we want a protein shake, or if we want a little popcorn, or we want an apple or something like that, cool, no problem. But major meals done by 7 o'clock. Why? Because now our body isn't having to digest food, which is another stressor, which throws us into the sympathetic nervous system, which shuts down the parasympathetic nervous system, which actually helps us get into deeper stages of sleep. And we
Mm-hmm.
also produce 400 times more melatonin in our gut than is produced by the pineal gland in our brain. So all of a sudden, if we're eating after 7 o'clock, we're shutting down our natural God-given tendencies to have great night sleeps. So 3 hours before bed, no more major meals. 2 hours before bed, so this would be 8 o'clock on that 10 o'clock sleep time,
Mm-hmm.
no more hard decisions. So no more deep work. So we're not sending emails. We're not planning for the next day. We're not sending text messages. We're not contemplating what's going on in business. It's be present with your kids. Be present with your family. Be present with your wife or your husband or your spouse. Be really focused
Yeah.
on where your feet are. And then at 9 o'clock, You choose one thing, and I call it a parasympathetic buffet. So basically things that relax you. And I have a list of things. For me, they're sauna, red light, breath work, reading, and my massage chair. Those are the 5 things that I love to do. So at 9 o'clock, I'm choosing one of those things. And I'm going to go and I'm going to do that for about 15, 20 minutes. I might watch a show that's just mindless. Then I'm going to get up, brush my teeth, have a shower, go to bed. And all of a sudden, boom, you're out by 10 o'clock. Why? You've prepared for sleep.
Mm-hmm.
So I've now owned my night, so I can now own my morning. And I wake up, and the first thing I do is I get up and I go look for sunshine. I wake up at 6 a.m. here in Florida. The sun rises about 6:15. I wake up, I get a glass of water, I walk outside to my balcony, I watch the sunrise, I do my prayers, I do about 3 minutes of breath work, I come in, I ride the bike for 15 minutes, I go get a lift in, I sit in the sauna, I shower. 90 minutes later, I'm ready for my day at 7:45. Ready to have breakfast. And so because I've now poured into myself first, I've got my priorities in order. God first, myself second, my spouse third, my friends and family fourth, my business fifth. I can now steward myself to the rest of the people that I'm going to be pouring into the rest of the day. And so that's what I would take away from this is being able to own your night so that you can own your morning, and then ultimately having intentionality to how things operate. So it's not just another laundry list, things that mean something to you, things that are purposeful for you, and being able then to create those changes.
I got to say that was incredible. Just that rundown for me, I love it. You know, the fact that you took my scenario and then gave me some actionable steps. I will say that when my wife listens to this episode, she's going to be totally jealous of your morning routine. We would love nothing more than to get things packed up and move down to Florida, specifically just for the sunrise. But
Joseph,
no, I mean,
because I want to keep pouring into you here. Where do you live specifically?
Ocean City, Maryland.
So what time does the sun usually rise in Ocean City?
Should be right about that same time, like 6:15, like 6:30. It varies throughout the year, but I would say
And then
right about that same time.
I know you have kids as well. What time do they get up?
Usually about 6:30.
Awesome.
Not my youngest. She'll typically get up closer to like 7:30.
Because I hear that all the time. Yeah, well, you don't have children you have to manage in the morning and all of this stuff. Just because we are told this lie all the time that having low energy, gaining weight, not being able to sleep, not being able to have a morning routine is just what it takes to be a business owner. Is just what it takes to be an entrepreneur. Is just what it takes to be a mom or a dad. Is just what it takes to be married. That's the biggest lie in the world.
For sure.
All it takes is a little bit of intentionality. So when we come back to this, what we can even do, you said you get up at 8 o'clock usually, is if we get you if we get you built into that night routine and we now help you own that night, we can get you getting up maybe you don't have to get up at 6, but maybe you get up at 6:30, maybe you get up at 6:45, maybe you get up at 7. And because it's a little bit darker in Maryland, especially in the winter, maybe you get a red light, an artificial red light. There's a great brand out there, Mito Red Light. It's best in class, best on the market. And you stand in front of the red light for about 15 minutes in the morning. You do some breath work. Maybe you just read something. Maybe you meditate. Maybe you listen to some music. Maybe one of your kids is up and you just snuggle with them for a little bit in front of the red light while you're standing, or you pray over them, or whatever it is that you want to do with them. But now you make it something that's with your kids. And then you go for maybe a 15-minute run, or you do some type of movement and activity. That right there, that alone is going to set you up to be able to steward the rest of your day, because you've poured into yourself first. Instead of just waking up at 8, grabbing a quick cup of coffee, maybe a bagel, shipping the kids off, and then going to the office and getting to your laundry list of things. Because now that you've poured into yourself, you've got more than to give to everybody else.
Absolutely. No, yeah, I mean, simply what this comes down to is I've got to own it. That's for dang sure. And I can't use the excuse of, the kids ready in the morning because, God bless my wife. I mean, she's had that down to a science for the last 7, 8 years, however long my older kids have been in school. So she is always the one that, she gets them all ready, bags packed, everything ready out the door. So I literally have no excuse except for to own it.
I love it.
Yeah. But so if you don't mind, I want to transition over to the app because I'm curious about, what's entailed in the app, the capabilities, the whole shebang.
Yeah, so the big thing when we come back to it is it's really understanding HRV and how it adapts and how it all comes to your habit adherence. So whether you have an Apple, Fitbit, Garmin Polar, they really hide HRV inside the app. So if you have an Apple Watch right now and you go into your Apple Health, it's not going to pop up HRV right away. You're going to have to dig for it a little bit. You're going to have to click on the heart tab, and then it's going to open up and it'll say heart rate variability. And then you can start tracking it from the last day, the last week, the last month. And if you're, and I'm guessing listeners, I'm just going to go with the middle age bracket here, somewhere between 35 and 55. But if you're 35 to 55 and your HRV is under an average of 45, there's some chronic stress going on. And quite frankly, that chronic stress leaves you in that 90 percentile of fake health, where the longer that you're in that fake health space, the smaller your window of opportunity to get into true health is, and it's going to send you into death and disease. So your window will close where it comes from preventative to where it turns into treatment of some type. Wow. And so we really want to make sure that we have a quantifiable number that's showing this. So whether it's Apple, whether it's Aura, same thing. You got to dig for it a little bit. It's under readiness score. Whoop, same thing. It's you got to dig for it a little bit. It's under your recovery score. But HRV is really the only metric that you need to identify with, the only thing that you need to look at to be able to understand how your body's adapting to stress and strain. And so I say that what our app does is it pulls raw HRV data. That's it. Pulls raw HRV data over and then correlates it to your behaviors, the 8 controllables that we talk about: exercise, nutrition, sleep, immune function, environment, self-care, nutrition, and mindset. And so these 8 controllables have about 20 to 25 habits under each one that we can start to focus on, and we can start to curtail which ones we want to take ownership of. And based on whether we adhere to them or whether we don't, we start to see either a positive or negative HRV trend. And by doing this, it really starts to wake us up to what behaviors, habits, and lifestyles are best and most advantageous for us, and what are our big rocks. I know for me, not eating 3 hours before bed is a massive one for me. Like, it's huge. Yep. Anytime I eat late into the night, I don't sleep well, and my HRV plummets. It's a huge one. Another one for me, if I don't get half my body weight in ounces of water. Another one. If I'm dehydrated, I exercise a lot. I train. I'm in the sauna, so I've got a heavy sweat on every day. If I don't hydrate properly, again, it's a stressor on my body, and my HRV plummets the next day. Those are 2 things that have become non-negotiables for me. That if you asked a random person, they'd never say a non-negotiable is not eating 3 hours before bed and getting half my body weight in ounces. Like, they never would think that. It's like, I got to get consistent sleep, or I got to get outside once a day. But it's like, is that really moving the needle for you? Is that really what your body's telling you? Is that really what your body's communicating to you? And so that's what our app does, is it helps you learn the language of your body so that you can now move in a more powerful direction.
Very cool. So, I wasn't sitting here texting on my phone. I actually went on to download the app just to check it out. But I do see it says contact your Own It coach for access. So this is pretty cool. It seems like it's a way that you're able to track that on the coaching side.
Exactly. Yep. And so anybody that's in our ecosystem will end up having also a human that they can communicate with to actually help them and help drive these changes in their lives.
Yeah. So I have 3 questions. it was actually to go a little bit back to where we were on the night before. Um, I'm curious of your opinion of cold plunging, just because that's something that I started doing. And, for me, I actually was doing it at night and would do it right before bed. And I'm kind of curious because I would imagine that's something that does kind of shock your heart rate a little bit. Is that like the wrong approach? Should I just not be doing that at night? But I did find when I was doing it rather consistently, I did sleep amazing, which was good. I also found that like I had a period of time, this was back in like 2021, where like I was getting sick rather often. And then like once I started doing that, I made some other changes at the same time, but it seemed like my health was at an all-time high. But I'm curious if overall of your opinion of cold plunging in general, because I heard you mention it. And then I have a question about the sauna as well.
Awesome. Yeah, I think cold plunging is an amazing tool. I think it's awesome. It has a lot of powerful health benefits. The downside is that, like everything that we do in this country, we take it to the extremes. We take it to the extremes in temperature. We take it to the extremes in length and duration, and then we also take it to the extremes in frequency. So I'm a fan of it. I cold plunge. However, I only cold plunge on days that my HRV is above my 10-day average. Why? Because all of a sudden, if I'm to be cold plunging when my HRV is already depleted, I'm adding another stressor onto my body that is unnecessary for me to add. And so what I notice on myself and a lot of other of our clients is that when you're cold plunging in a depleted state, it actually increases your sickness potential. So like your colds, your flus, your common illnesses and sicknesses. The second thing is whether you use it at night or whether you just use it in the morning, it's completely up to you. It has amazing sleep benefits. Why? Because our core body temperature actually drops and has to drop in order to A, release deeper levels of melatonin, and then B, get us into those deeper sleep stages, the REM cycles, the slow wave sleep cycles, which is where all the rest and recovery happens. So by getting a temperature that drops us lower is amazing. I mean, I've got a chilly sleep on my bed, so I'm able to actually control my temperature of which I'm sleeping at on a regular basis, which has been revolutionary for my sleep. And so I don't mind cold plunging at night. I think it's great, but it's just knowing how often to do it. The last thing I want to say here on cold plunging is we see it all over Instagram. People are throwing, like, they've got these tubs full of ice and it's like 37, 38 degrees temperature, and they're jumping in or they're hacking with an axe into a half frozen river and jumping in. And it's like, we don't need to do that to get the benefits of cold plunging. People always say, what's the optimal temperature? I said, cold enough so that it's uncomfortable, but not so cold that it hurts, that it's like, and you just got to be toughing it out. No, that's not right. And then what we want to make sure that we're doing is somewhere between 60 seconds and 4 minutes. If we can go somewhere in between there, it's optimal. Yeah. There was actually a scientist, it's called like the Hardgrove method or something. And she actually looked it up. And if you get 11 minutes total of cold plunging a week, that is the minimal effective dose. And I'm always looking for the minimal effective dose. I don't want to do any more than I have to of anything. And so if you can get 11 minutes of cold exposure throughout the week, you're in a really good place.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting. I had, last year, I had committed to doing it for 30 days. And I tell you, if you go back to what you just said, you should do it almost like when you need to, or when it's optimal for your body. But there was definitely some times when I would go out there, because when you commit to it for 30 days, you don't know what the weather's going to be like throughout those 30 days. So some days it was snowing, some days it was raining, some days I would forget until about 11 o'clock, but I made that commitment to myself. So it was like, all right, well, now I got to go out there at 11 o'clock. I could see that the stress of doing it, the stress of just even thinking about having to do it in a time like that when, I was probably already supposed to be asleep. It's kind of interesting, but um,
And it's a
I, I,
good
I
it's a
definitely
good
like your
point,
take on
Joseph.
it.
It's a great point, Joseph, because that's when we take something that has health benefits and we actually make it detrimental.
Yeah.
And we do that all the time with different modalities and different things that we just don't understand. And that's really what our mission comes back to is I want to empower every single person. I want to redeem the health of the world. That's our mission. That's a mission here at Own It. Redeem the health of the world and help people understand their bodies and take
Hmm.
control for the first time. And I love HRV. I love the coaching that we put people through because I tell this story often. When my wife and I went on our honeymoon to Vietnam, we landed and I got off the plane, was trying to find customs. All the signs were in Vietnamese. Everybody spoke Vietnamese. I don't know anything about Vietnamese. I,
Right.
I felt confused. I felt overwhelmed. I felt frustrated. I felt a little bit anxious. And then it made me think all of a sudden, man, this is how our bodies feel when they're trying to communicate with us all the time because we don't speak the language of our body. And
Right.
so our body is frustrated. Our body is overwhelmed. Our body is anxious. Our body is confused. And it
Hmm.
shows up not just because it's communicating through HRV, we don't know what it is, but then it shows up in symptoms. It shows up in fatigue. It shows up in brain fog. It shows up in headaches. It shows up in sleeplessness. It shows up in not letting our mind rest. All of these things is how it ultimately delivers these messages to us. And all it takes is us understanding our body at a little bit of a better level.
Right. I want to learn about the coaching. So, what's the process there? So, for those listening, myself included, if we want to learn more about the coaching, I would imagine there's some sort of maybe onboarding or where can we go for information?
Yeah, ownitcoaching.com is our website. That's where we can really kind of break everything down. But we have a multitude of ways in which people work with us. We work with people one on one, and that's where we go through. You've got your team pod, which we talk about. There's two different types of coaches: outer energy coaches and inner energy coaches. So remember, we're talking about that holistic integration. And so our inner energy coaches are all cognitive behavioral therapists, helping people truly get over barriers or hurdles of what it takes to create behavior change, kind of getting down into those deep desires and how that happens. And then our
Yep.
outer energy coaches are all functional medicine MDs or registered dietitians. So they have one or the other distinction that they can dive into. And then everybody has gone through our Own It coaching certification, which is also a 4-month process. So very educated, very experienced, and really kind of best in class when it comes to what you're going to get. And we work in a very integrated way. So that's your one-on-one
Very cool.
experience. And then we also have a group experience where we bring like-minded individuals together. You have your team of coaches. You
Hmm.
still have your one-on-one debriefs to go over your own testing information, but we teach HRV, we teach habits, we teach lifestyle, we teach behaviors as we go through, and we're launching. We launch those groups monthly, so they start every month. So we've got our next one starting, I think, February 9th.
Hmm.
So we've got another group, another class starting up here right away. And again, we keep those groups small. We keep them to about 20 to 25 people, so very intimate still. You've got
Hmm.
2 or 3 coaches on there, so it breaks off to about 5 or 6 people per coach, and then you still get your one-on-one sessions throughout that. And then we have events. We hold events here in Miami once a quarter to really help give a fully immersive, fully experiential education. So you're actually going through these things. We're going through these morning routines. We're going through these habits, these lifestyles. We're experiencing them together. We're teaching you how to utilize HRV and understand it. So those are 2.5-day events here in Miami. And so that's really what it looks like from a coaching and full-on experience with us.
Awesome. Very cool. So they would just go to the website, and I would imagine there's some sort of form they can fill out there
Yep.
that would get them in touch with one of your onboarding coaches. Or
You got it. Yeah, what we
very
what we
cool.
actually do is when they go to the website, they'll just send over an inquiry form and say, hey, I'm interested. And we'll actually do a full, what we call a Own Your Health Again blueprint call, which is about 30 to 60 minutes long. Really kind of do a little bit of an audit, talk to you, very similar to what I just did with you, understanding what you're going through, what your desires are, where you want to go. You can take a look at some of the controllables, where some of your habits are great, where some of them can be improved, and then talk to you a little bit about different testing, the HRV component, and where it makes sense to potentially get started.
Wow. Very cool. Well, Justin, I think that's a great place for us to kind of round to the end here. I think this was an incredible episode. Personally, for myself, I don't, for anybody listening, I think that there was a ton of nuggets for you to pull from. But for me, selfishly, I think I got a ton out of this for sure. So if anybody's looking to try to connect with you, Justin, should they follow you on social media, things like that?
Yeah, awesome. I'm super active on Instagram. So at Justin Roth, Roeth. That's where you can find me, and that's where I hang out. So I make a purposeful intention. I set about an hour every single day to answer every single DM. So you know that you're getting an answer from me. So if you want to reach out and communicate with me there, happy to help any way we can.
Very cool. Yeah. And Justin, was there anything that I missed that you wish I would have asked, or anything that you want to share with the listeners just before we wrap up?
No, I think you nailed it. It was a great interview. I love making it practical for people and giving them real life action steps, because at the end of the day, we're just overstimulated with information, and the more information that we get, there's so many companies out there, tech companies, testing companies, tools that are all saying, hey, we're going to help your health. But really what happens is we start to just become, again, confused and overwhelmed with information, and we don't make any changes because we really don't know what to do. And so if that's you and that's how you're feeling, you're not broken. I want to leave you with this message. If you haven't gotten your health under control and you feel like this is an area that you really want to lean into, number one, you're not broken. You're normal. You're just like everybody else out there that the system has failed you. And just know and believe that there is a way out of this, that there is a way that you can own your health again. There is a way that you can take control of your health again. And it just starts with making your next decision.
Absolutely. Well, Justin, I appreciate your time. I think this was an incredible episode, and I look forward to pushing this out there to the listeners. And, I think once I start owning my habits, at some point, maybe we'll do a follow-up episode, and we can talk about my HRV and dive into it from there.
I'd love it.
Very cool. All right. Thank you, sir.